Hey guys, welcome to another Sunday night live session. I am your host. I'm your host this evening. My name is Kevin Shaw. I am editor-in-chief of the Watercraft Journal. The Watercraft Journal is a daily watercraft, personal watercraft, jet ski, Sea-Doo, Yamaha enthusiast publication at watercraftjournal.com, where we publish new articles written entirely free to you every day, Monday through Friday. And there's no subscription fees, there's no downloads, there's no passwords. You simply log on. As long as you've got internet access, you can read the articles. Equally, we also publish here on YouTube Sunday through Friday, entirely free to you. Obviously, it's YouTube, but we don't have a paywall. So you're getting daily videos and daily articles on personal watercraft. So if you haven't subscribed to our newsletters, please do, so that you're always caught up on everything we publish. And we put out so much content, it's exhausting. All right. Oh, we already got a super chat. Christopher Stone, will the Watercraft Journal bring back the 7 Deadly Questions series? I'm wondering if people wouldn't enjoy a reboot as much as I did in the original. Also, what or why did the series start? We were doing a lot more race coverage. We were doing a lot more race content. So we were interviewing a lot of racers. We were interviewing a lot of people who were of notoriety within the industry. We can simply continue to do that. I am, quite frankly, too damn busy. So if only we had reliable freelancers who were willing to do these interviews, we'd be able to do it. In fact, it's the reason why I have pictures for the Daytona free ride, but I have no article. And it's because so many people within this community are flakes. And I don't know how to sugarcoat that. I really don't. And it's a little heartbreaking because, quite frankly, I would love to do more interviews. I would love to have more content of that kind. It is simply finding people who want to be paid to write articles to do that. If you are at all interested to write for the Watercraft Journal, please email me at info@watercraftjournal.com. Again, that is info@watercraftjournal.com. If you would like to be a regular contributor, we pay net $60 from day of invoice. We do pay competitive prices, and seeing that the one other jet ski magazine typically doesn't pay for half of the content they publish, I would think you'd want us to pay, especially given the fact that we have literally 20 times the readership. But that's the answer. Billy is here. I saw him here before I signed on. So this is going to be, we're getting right out of the gate. I really don't have any notes. I don't have any news. We got a super chat from Stoney. Stoney writes, Are Yamaha extended warranties worth it if you keep your ski stock? Certainly, especially if you're wanting the dealer to do most of your service. That's even better, because that's all logged within a database, and that database, and having your service department maintain your watercraft, they're just going to be checking it off. So, God forbid something bad were to happen to your personal watercraft, they can go into the database and they can see that Stoney's Yamaha has been serviced regularly and it's been checked out and everything comes in all nice and gravy, and they're happy about it. So that is really a good choice, especially if you're choosing to leave it alone. If you're choosing to leave it alone, then yeah, I would totally do that. All right. Well, tonight's topic, I'm going to try to do my damnedest to not make this political. It's not to be political at all. But the reality is that economics, and if you took an economics class in high school, like I did, and then took another mandatory economics class in college to get your associate's degree before you could go into your bachelor's, then the 2 years of economics that you've taken will guide you through most of what we're talking about today. we are going to be talking about primarily supply side economics. All right. I feel like Ben Stein on the beginning of Ferris Bueller, where he's talking about voodoo economics, and that was an economics policy underneath the Nixon administration. But we are trying. I'm going to try to not make this about Republican, Democrat, Independent, Progressive, Liberal. I'm trying. All my notes are so boring that I'm doing this off the top of my head. But what I am going to do, and I'm making a concerted effort to try to keep this so neutral so that people who disagree with my politics have no ground to stand on. What I am choosing to do is I'm bringing up on my laptop here, and I have given you all the links here in the chat, all the links I'm using, all the websites I'm using. They're all NewsGuard certified. They've all been reviewed. They're all vetted NewsGuard sites. 3 of them are government sites. All right. But we're going to be using primarily the U.S. Energy Information Administration as our primary, and then the Institute for Energy Research. Because we have to talk about this as absolutely acerbic as possible, just absolutely as raw as we can. So let's talk about some really boring stuff. All right. Last week I got an email. Guy was asking me, he says, Kevin, I'm really concerned because I saw that we're up to $110 a barrel of crude. It's not gasoline, it's oil, of unrefined crude oil. All right. This is the stuff they pump out of the earth. All right. He writes, I'm concerned that prices for crude, a barrel of crude has now reached $110. There's economists who are speculating that it could be up to $200 a barrel by the end of the year. What do you think this is going to do to personal watercraft sales? And I said, well, that's pretty speculative. I mean, I could, what would happen to PWC sales if an asteroid hit the Earth? I mean, it's pretty speculative. So I kind of wrote him a smart ass answer and let it go. And then I wrote him back and I'm like, well, that's actually a really good topic to discuss. And the reason why it's a really good topic to discuss is that in the fall of 2008, crude reached $140 a barrel. The same month that crude reached $140 a barrel, we had what was effectively the Great Recession. All right. The dollar collapsed, values of everything skyrocketed, and people started losing their homes and losing their jobs. Now, I understand there's a lot going on in regards to the inflated market of currency at that time in 2018 regarding the housing market, and in more detail, more importantly than the housing market and the housing bust or boom and bust that was happening, was what the very vile underwriting, basically hedging of the loans that the banks were doing. And the banks were basically playing Las Vegas with FDIC loans. And what happened with that was once crude prices reached $140 a barrel, people went, oh, this is hitting me in my pocketbook. And the banks got hit. And that's when all the money started getting called in. So Yes, yeah, $124 today. Well, it was actually, what's interesting is that when we made, and Joe, thank you for that. Um, what there is actually a scaling, and I had to learn about it because I literally didn't know. Was on Friday, it was announced that it was $128 a barrel, and that was announced on a lot of conservative outlets, and I knew people who didn't like conservative media were going to go, "Oh, it's a lie, and you're lying," and blah blah blah. So I had to go find, like, okay, well, what the hell, where is that number coming from? And that's a scalable number. That's a scalable price. But as of, yeah, look at that. So that scalable price, it's only by a very small percentage. So while the market might say it's $110 a barrel, the actual purchasing or the speculative investment will say it's $128 or $124, and it fluctuates a lot more erratically than the listed market. So right now, I'm going to work off of the listed market, which right now is 110. It very much could be higher, but I know it's not lower. So the big thing is, why is it expensive? Why is the price going up? And how is that going to affect the personal watercraft market? First and foremost, 2019, and it was towards the end of 2019, and we'll bring this scale up, we'll bring this graphic up. Oh, that is blurred beyond belief. I wonder if I can, here we go. You guys can see that, I hope. All right. The beginning of this scale is 1950. The end of this scale is 2019, from 1950 to 2019. Okay. This is the U.S. total energy production and consumption rates, or graphs, from 1950 to 2019. In 1957, and only in 1957, actually it was in 1958 for half the year, the United States produced more crude oil on its own territory than it consumed. In 1959, demand exceeded production, and it remained that way. All right, our consumption, or demand, it says consumption here, but we're going to use demand because that's an economic term. Demand exceeded production until 2019. All right. And what were those numbers? In 2019, this is according, all right, I'm using my source here, to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. This is from the government itself. All right. I don't want to skip ahead. Okay. The record annual average high of 2019 was 12.2 million barrels a day. Okay. 12.2 a day. 12.2 million a day. That's what we produced in 2019. Now, what allowed that to happen? What allowed that to happen was leases, all right, leases to drill and to frack on government land, okay? Number one, expansion of oil companies to drill on private land. Cost of manufacturing was lowered, not increased, but lowered, meaning it was easier for them to manufacture or to process the oil. And most importantly, the cost of transportation of that oil. If you have to load up a tanker truck and you have to fill up the tanker truck with diesel, and you got to pay a driver to drive that tanker across the country, and he's got to make multiple stops, and he's got to eat, and he's got to sleep, and it takes several days, you got to pay for that. Versus a pipeline or an oil container ship, that cost is demonstrably lower. Okay. So the pipelines that everyone talks about that gets all excited, there were multiple pipelines. Keystone XL was just a shortcut of the Central Keystone pipeline. Okay. They were looking at cutting basically a diagonal cut. I'm simplifying this, of course, to help expedite the transfer of unprocessed crude oil. And that would effectively drop the costs of transporting oil. The actual oil itself isn't higher or lower in value, but the final cost to you and me at the gas pump goes down because it took less money to get there. Make sense? I don't think we've lost anyone on this one. Okay. So what happens in 2020? 2020, we have the COVID outbreak. Okay. Many states, many cities, many school districts, many employers said, stay home. Not all, but many did. So what did that do? That lowered demand because suddenly people weren't driving to school, the school buses weren't driving, the commuters weren't driving, people were working from home if they had a computer from home and they could do their job from home. Obviously a roofer couldn't do his job from home, but we're talking about people in the service industry and the technology industries. They could do their job effectively from home. So suddenly demand decreased. Okay. Now that's the question. A lot of people were like, oh, well, that's the reason why gas was so cheap. Well, that gas plummeted in 2020 was the demand. That COVID killed the demand. Well, interestingly enough, that demand decrease, which there was a decrease and there was a marked decrease, is not responsible for a decline in production. Okay. The decline in production was brought upon by delays in licensing. Excuse me. I have to go back to my notes. But delays in licensing not being renewed. And that was during 2020. That's during Trump's time. Okay. There was a decline in production. Interestingly enough, and check this out. This is from the U.S. Energy Information Administration. I'm going to read two things to you. I want to read these. U.S. crude oil production averaged 11.3 million barrels per day in 2020. That's down 935,000 or 8% from the annual average high of 12.2 million in 2019. So we went down 8% of total production from 2019 to 2020. This is where it gets interesting. The 2020 decrease in production was the largest annual decline in U.S. Energy Information Administration's record. That 8% drop is the largest single decline on record. The production decline resulted from reduced drilling activity related to low oil prices in 2020. All right. There was reduced drilling activity. So we go to, we're going to hop over. I had this ready. Shoot. Here we go. Here's drilling productivity report. Okay. Same website, same government organization. production by region, they're down from 2021 to 2022, the same time, by 29,000 a day. Okay, that's far less than 8%, but we're down. We're continued down. That's about 3%. So let's go back to our original paragraph. Interestingly enough, in January 2020, U.S. crude oil production reached a peak of 12.8 million barrels a day. All right. The current administration, the current regulations, as enforced by the United States government at the time, had it so crude oil prices, or had it so that we were reaching peak numbers. We had refilled, all right, the strategic oil reserves. They were completely refilled after being tapped into in 2014. We had completely refilled them by the beginning of 2020. It continues. In March 2020, crude oil prices decreased because of the sudden drop in petroleum demand that resulted from the global response to the coronavirus pandemic. The declining prices led crude oil operators to shut in wells and limit the number of wells brought online. So they are responding to the market demand. They're lowering, all right, the manufacturers themselves, the companies themselves, lowered production, lowering the output for the major oil producing regions. In May of that year, U.S. crude oil production reached its lowest average monthly volume for the year at 10 million barrels. That's a huge, huge cut, all right? From 12.8 to 10 million. That's 2.8 million barrels a day. That's bigger than the overall average from 19 to 20. So, what are we supposed to take from this? Yeah, Gulf of Mexico took the biggest hit. That's the other thing that I was talking about. So, we take this information, close that out. We take a major hit, but we still have oil production in the U.S. For 2020, we're doing okay. We have good oil reserves. The prices are low. No one's really complaining about oil prices in 2020. Actually, prices keep going down because demand is so low that people want to be competitive. Okay, that doesn't sound bad. So 2021, what happens? 2021, at the very beginning of the year, several policies are put into place that restrict drilling offshore, that restrict drilling in on federal lands, and interestingly enough, all of those wells that were shut down on and were eased down on federal lands, federal regulation said you can't turn those back on. And they're like, crap, we need them now. And they're like, nope, turn them off. So what happened is that for the first time, let's go back to our little graph. For the first time since 1957, we actually had more oil than we needed. We became a net exporter in 2019 and 2020. We were exporting. Nope, I had it. Where'd I go? Shoot, I got to find it. 8%. Energy independence since 1957. Shoot. Drilling by region. We can close that one out. Here we go. Washington Examiner. U.S. projected to give up net oil exporter status this year. We are no longer a net exporter. We are now a net importer. We have gone now to requiring 43% of the nation's oil from outside sources because we are no longer producing that same number as we were in 2019 or 2020 for that matter. All right. And worse off, demand has increased at the same time. So now our demand has far exceeded our production. Supply side economics. So with scarcity comes higher prices. Simultaneously, at the end of the Trump administration, the Federal Reserve began printing an exorbitant amount of cash. Now, the Federal Reserve prints cash every year. I mean, trillions of dollars in cash. But why they print that cash is to replace outgoing, torn, worn out, ruined, easily counterfeited cash with new, higher technology cash. Unfortunately, that number did not meet the printing. So suddenly we were printing far more cash than we were destroying. And yes, they quite literally destroy the old cash. It's crazy. So, okay, yeah, Scott had a good point. I just, whatever reason, YouTube blocked it. Okay, so now we're looking at higher demand because people are going to work, people are driving to work, kids are going in school buses, planes are flying, boats are sailing or driving. I shouldn't say sailing. We now have this high level of demand, and we're coming in with already reduced production. And a lot of people who are clamoring for the XL pipeline, for Keystone pipeline, they're doing it because they think it makes oil, or they don't know much about it. The Keystone pipeline, which, by the way, for the vast majority of the Keystone pipeline is underground, and it's well maintained by the Parks Department. But that's only going to help transport fuel and keep costs of fuel down. So humorously enough, the environmentalists who are like, "Oh, we need to stop the pipeline," they're not realizing that same oil now has to be transported by a big rig that's taking up roads and drinking diesel and all that kind of stuff. They're not putting it together, but that's all right. That's okay. So while we need to reopen our wells and we need to reduce the cost of oil, we are now enjoying the fruits of globalization, wherein the UN, including the United States, approved the Syrian pipeline that basically flushed Russia full of oil. And Russian oil only accounted for anywhere from 8 to 14% of the United States oil, and as of a couple weeks ago, wasn't much. We were buying mainly from the OPEC nations, from the Saudi nations, but right now, in fact, I believe it was as of yesterday afternoon, we are now actually petitioning Tehran in Iran, excuse me, to sell us more oil. So rather than producing more offshore, more Texan, more Appalachian, more Alaskan oil within our own nation, which we can control, and the EPA actually looks at, anyone who is involved with oil refineries, they will testify with a hand on the Bible how much the EPA is up their butt. The EPA is super up their butt, and they're always coming down on oil refineries and oil processing. So domestic oil production within the United States is some of the most scrutinized. It really is. And interestingly enough, it's like, well, which do you feel more comfortable with? Do you feel more comfortable with domestic oil production wherein the federal government, as is with the EPA in place, is watching it like a hawk? Or would you rather buy your oil and your energy from Iran or Russia or OPEC? Which would you prefer? And interestingly enough, most Americans are like, I'll live with EPA regulations as long as we produce our own energy. So that's kind of a little bit of the conflict that you're getting between political factions within the country. So, and I'm trying to keep this as neutral as I humanly can. So what happens right now is we are looking at dramatically undersupplied market with a moderately, we're not over demand. Our demand isn't ridiculous right now. It's nothing different than 2019, 2018, 2017. It's not like the population increased by another 15 million people and they all have cars and they all have, private airplanes and they're all drinking fuel. The demand is really within reason. And the Department of Energy and all these organizations, they're all saying the same thing, that demand really is within an operational sphere. Okay, great. Awesome. So we know the number X that we have to deal with. And I believe that number is it's based on the thermal units, the British thermal units of quadrillions. And that quadrillion, that's the demand, is at 2019 was 100.2 quadrillion British thermal units, or just 100.2 quads. So we're going to work with 100.2 quads. And we eked by in 2019 with 101 quadrillion or 101 quads. And, we basically were 0.8 quads. And I know that, I'm kind of laughing at using this term. So, all right, closing out net oil exporter. Let's see here. That's, again, a short-term energy outlook, the EIA. Now that demand is back, the United States is expected to bring in an average of 3.9 million barrels of oil a day on an average basis of the year, building on the 19% growth in net crude oil imports in 2021. Did you catch that? Let me read that one portion again. I can't believe I'm going to read this. This sucks. The net crude oil imports of 2021 grew by 19%. Last year, we had to buy almost 20% more of our oil. Can you imagine if your wife said to you, hey, we're going to eat out 20% more. We're not going to eat at home. We're going to eat at home 20% less. We're going to eat out 20% more. What would that do to your budget? What would that do to your home budget? That's catastrophic. A 20% or 19%, I'm rounding up, but a 19% increase in spending overnight, that would hurt a lot of families. Let's just be really honest. That would hurt a lot of different people. So, okay, that was the sentence I really wanted to hammer in. Okay. Domestic average 11.6 barrels a day. Week ending February 11th with a 6%. Okay, over the year. All right. So here's where it gets fun. Can you guys read this one? This is from Bloomberg. Mike Bloomberg, who owns this very liberal news website, ran against Trump. All right. Mike Bloomberg is no conservative. Bloomberg reports JP Morgan says $185 a barrel oil is in view if Russian supply hit persists. Okay. That's the stipulation in the title. Is if this Russian crap keeps happening, continues for the rest of the year, we might be at $185 a barrel. Okay, that's the article. But here's where it gets a little interesting. And I don't think a lot of people know this. Russia, right now, is so desperate to sell oil to the countries that are now cutting it off that they actually offered markets. They offered the US, they offered the UK, they offered the EU, they offered everyone who'd listen that they would cut $22 off each barrel if they bought in bulk this weekend. You know who took them up on it? No one. And you might be cheering, going, yeah, good, screw the Russians. Okay, fine. That's fine. I'm not going to get into that. But if, let's skip past the video here. Okay. If our governments were so serious about we're in an energy crisis and the price of energy is through the roof, a barrel of oil at $88 is a lot better than $110. You catch me? Am I losing anyone on this one? So, this is where we're looking. Every one of these countries, US, Canada, Australia, EU, all the EU, the UK, because UK is not part of the EU, Central and South America, Africa, they had a clearance sale. Russia had a clearance sale and nobody came. So, just saying, that's what just happened on that one. Now, yeah, currently 66%, 2/3, Fibonacci number, of Russian oil is struggling to find buyers, JP Morgan analysts said in the note. Yeah, here we go. Woo, boy. Yeah, in the short term, the scale of supply shock is so large that oil prices need to reach and stay at $120 a barrel for months to incentivize demand destruction, the analyst said, assuming there would be no immediate return of Iranian crude. Now, what does this phrase mean? Demand destruction. Remember we talked at the very beginning, I said the words, it's supply side economics. Well, what has to exist for there to be a strong supply side economy? There has to be demand. Okay? This is where we get into trouble. Demand destruction is actually an old term. Demand destruction has been around for about, I want to say, 70 years. Demand destruction means that there's no longer demand for this product. The demand is destroyed. Question: how much demand is there for buggy whips and oil lamps? Not a lot, right? Because the automobile basically destroyed the demand for horse and carriages and effectively buggy whips. Electricity and the light bulb effectively destroyed all demand for oil lamps. Right now, economists within JP Morgan are looking towards, with aplomb, with eagerness, for demand destruction of crude. They want to destroy the demand for crude. Here's the problem. The problem is Oil is used for everything. Oil is used to make tennis shoes. Oil is used to grow food. Oil is used to create fertilizer. Oil is used to create everything. Rubber, plastics, silicone chips, your smartphone, the avocado toast you eat in the morning, you bunch of goofballs. Oil's used for everything. And it's used to transport everything. I had a clip queued up that I knew I was going to get struck by YouTube for, so I took it down. The clip is of a conversation that a person had on Twitter with Tim Pool. And if you don't know who Tim Pool is a very good resource for late breaking news. Anyway, they're arguing over living wages and paying people not to work and all that kind of fun stuff. And he says, well, this is, this kind of stuff is really going to hurt the farming industry. And paying people not to work is really going to hurt the farming industry. And at the time, farmers were literally pouring their milk out on the ground because they couldn't get the milk that they're milking from their cattle to the processing plants. And then the processing plants couldn't get the bottles and the cartons that they needed to bottle this stuff. And then the trucks weren't showing up to ship the stuff to ship the stuff. And the guy's like, I don't understand the problem. He's like, what do you mean you don't understand the problem? He goes, milk's at the grocery store. Just go to the grocery store and get it. And Tim Pool's like, bro, how do you think the milk gets to the grocery store? That's the kind of people we're dealing with. These are the people we're dealing with, all right? Who go, there's plenty of food. Go to the grocery store and go get it from the marketplace. Well, how does the food get there? I don't know. It just gets there. Okay. This is who we're dealing with. So you're going to have to explain some of that stuff. For people with brains, you're going to have to explain, how do things get to the store? And, how is it made? So here we go. Scott, you're not wrong. No, there's intention there. It's not ignorance. There's a phrase that says never attribute to malice what could be explained by ignorance. Basically, like, if someone insults you, they probably did it out of ignorance and not out of intent, evil intent. But here we are. So what's happening right now is I'm fielding questions, and after I've spent 40 minutes explaining all of this, probably on deaf ears, is that I am fielding questions by people going, I don't understand why my ski is 2 weeks late or 2 months late or a year late, or why is my Sea-Doo at the dealership and there's no dashboard in it? That doesn't make any sense. I go, it makes perfect sense. Well, why is my Yamaha delayed by 3 months or 2 months or a month or whatever? That doesn't make any sense. Makes perfect sense. Why did Kawasaki cut its production run? Makes perfect sense. Why does it make perfect sense? Okay. Think about a jet ski like a cake. Let's do it this way. Let's just make it as simple as humanly possible for the least of these, for the least of the saints here. All right. So what do you need to bake a cake? Let's do the dumb version. Let's do the dumb version. You need a box of Betty Crocker cake mix, right? You need 2 eggs. You need what? A cup or 2 cups of milk and a cup of water, right? And you need a pan to put it in, and you need an oven to bake it in. We're doing the simple, easy version, okay? Well, let's say you go to the grocery store and you got your basket and you're walking around through the grocery store and you start seeing a lot of shelves are empty. But you're not worried because you're like, well, I don't care about, I'm not buying fresh fruit that comes from a greenhouse. And I'm not buying bacon that comes from a meat packer. So you walk past the meat and you see that half the meat, half of the, half of the meat section's empty. But you don't care. I'm here to bake a cake. So you just put your blinders on and you go walking over to the cake mix place. So you get your box of Funfetti Betty Crocker cake mix because you're going to have a really fun time with your Funfetti cake. And Funfetti is a fun word to say. So I'm going to keep using Funfetti. And you go get your box of Funfetti and you go, all right, well, I need to go get, I don't know, half a gallon of milk. And you go walking over to the dairy section, and lo and behold, well, golly gee, there's no milk on the shelf. And you go, oh, there's no whole milk. All right. Let's say there's non-fat milk. And you're like, well, crap. Who doesn't buy bacon? I don't trust them. I love it. All right. Anyway, for this example, we're talking about a moron. So let's just use the moron for this. We're talking about Johnny Dumbass here. So Johnny Dumbass it goes up to get a half a gallon of milk. And he can't buy whole milk, which tastes better. He's going to get non-fat because that's the only kind they have in stock. And it's only got about 2 or 3 days left before it goes bad. So he goes, well, I guess I better make my Funfetti cake tonight. So he goes and he gets a gallon of milk or a half gallon of milk. And then he walks over and he says, well, I got water at home. I can just use tap water. So that's easy. But I got to get half a dozen eggs. I'm going to get half a dozen eggs. So he walks over and they've got some soy milk. They've got various cartons of eggs, but a dozen eggs, and I'm just going to use a round number. A dozen eggs a week ago was $2. And he's got it in his head, I'm going to buy a half a dozen eggs for $2. And he walks up there and half a dozen eggs is suddenly $5. It's more than doubled. He's like, what the hell, man? Why is it so expensive? But he goes, well, I'm going to make my cake. So come hell or high water, I'm going to make my cake. So he gets his eggs. And then he realizes, oh, wait a minute. I need Dino. You need to watch our videos, buddy. You need to watch our videos on the 310. That's 2 hours worth of information right there. I can't answer that right now. And yes, the 310 models are, although they were delayed almost 2 months, they're in full production currently. And they're arriving in Australia right now. Okay. So I appreciate the super chat, but you got to watch our videos on the 310. I'm sorry, it's way too much. All right. So Johnny Dumbass has got his milk. He's got his Funfetti cake mix. He's got his eggs, and he realizes, oh, I need vegetable oil. And he walks over and he realizes there is no vegetable oil. And he's like, what the crap? What do I do? And that's when he goes up to the guy at the counter. I want to see the manager. He goes full Karen. I need to speak to the manager. And the manager shows up and he goes, yeah, how can I help you, sir? And Johnny Dumbass says, I need vegetable oil to make my cake. And he says, I'm really sorry. We sold out of it yesterday. Well, when can I expect more? Actually, sir, I'm very sorry, but I don't know when. We were told that we were going to have plenty come in 2 days ago, and that truck never showed up. Well, that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. So Johnny Dumbass puts all of his stuff back, and he gets back in his Nissan Leaf, and he drives all the way home, upset that he can't have his Funfetti cake. And he's not understanding that the added cost of eggs, the inability to buy the kind of milk he wants, and the fact that there was no vegetable oil on his shelf Not Cameron. I love it. That was the best example I could give. He can't wrap his head around why the stuff that he expects to be at the store aren't there, or they're double or triple the price. That is what is happening right now with personal watercraft. The plastics, the rubbers, the computer chips, all of the hardware is being delayed. It is also, if it's not delayed, it's double or triple the price. People got real upset with all the price hikes on all the models this year. Oh my gosh, they're bilking these people. It's a conspiracy. Yamaha and Sea-Doo and Cowie, they're all in it together. There's no such thing as scarcity. There's no such thing as scarcity. I'm not joking. There are threads dedicated on Facebook and on Greenhold to people saying there's no scarcity. They're just doing it to hike up the price. All right? Bro, are you out of your mind? Okay. Do you know? Okay, for example, I was on the phone with Jeff Nielsen of Nielsen Enterprises 3 weeks ago. Jeff Nielsen and I are talking about product not coming in and product being delayed. And Jeff, he's like, dude, I made the worst mistake. I go, what? And he goes, I bought my wife one of those Mach E Mustangs, the electric SUV Mustang. And I was like, oh no. And he goes, no, it's a cool car. I'm like, I disagree, but let's carry on. And he starts saying that car is sitting in a lot with thousands of other Mach E Mustangs. And they're all waiting for PCMs. They're all waiting for computers. Everyone, thousands of them. All right. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, we have shortages. Manufactured short. It's not. You want to, who's it's not manufactured by GM. It's not manufactured by Yamaha. It's not manufactured by Sea-Doo. But fix the app. You're correct. They're manufactured shortages by globalists. But would you like to start talking about Klaus Schwab and Davos? I can have that conversation. Do you want us to go full Alex Jones? Because I can do that. And I don't even watch Alex Jones, but apparently he and I are drinking the same Kool-Aid. Anyways, so my point in all of this is that because of the cost of energy being crude, being manufacturing, shipping, bringing product to the manufacturer is so costly and so delayed, we are looking at delays. All right? We are looking at delays. Now, thankfully, the manufacturers are doing their damnedest to circumvent these delays. And we've talked about them in complete and total detail. I have detailed the hell out of this. Okay? So, what's it mean for the future? I know right now that the OEs right now are in, I don't want to say panic mode. That's not right. And that would be a lie for me to say that. They have contingencies and they have plans in order. And let me, they're turning the frogs gay. Yes. that's my favorite Alex Jones thing. Anyway. 2014, Yamaha had a media event for the 2013. They had a media event. It was late 2013. They had a media event for the 14 models. I'm sitting down on the beach of the Ritz-Carlton in Georgia, and I'm not joking. I can't believe I was there. It was crazy. But Brian Setti, the brand manager, likes the place, and it's got a golf course and apparently a really nice wine cellar. I don't drink, so I don't know. Anyway, so I'm sitting there with Scott Watkins, and Watkins goes, and we're looking at the new FX line. That's pretty much when get out of here, Fix. I don't even. Just get out. Okay. Anyway, Watkins tells me a couple things. First, he lays it on thick that there's a supercharged version of the VXR coming. I'm like, okay, I'm interested. And then he says, "Oh, was it the 15s? Was it 2015 that they redesigned the FX or the VX models? Maybe it was 2015. God, I want to say it was 14. Damn it. Anyway, sorry, I'm blanking. I'm fried on all this stuff. He says, we got a supercharged version of this thing. It's badass." And I was like, wow, well, that was the GP 1800. Then he lays it on with me. And he says, you need to know why this VX exists. And I said, okay. And he says, this VX exists because of the 2008-2009 crash. He said, we went from selling over 80,000, the industry went from selling over 80,000 units a year to 29,000. And that was 2010. 29,000, I think it was 29,700 to 29,800. All right. It was under 30,000 units. All right. I want you to understand this again. We went from over 80,000 units sold, new units, in 2008 to 29,000 and a half, or under 30,000 a year later. That is a meteoric collapse of the market. And when that happened, Yamaha turned to all the engineers and said, we're killing everything but one Wave Runner. Make the one Wave Runner platform to do it all. It had to replace the VX, it had to replace the FZ, and it had to replace the FX. That was the marching orders that Scott Watkins got in 2009. So they busted their ass for several years to make what they felt was the perfect hull. And what they came up with was the VX/GP hull. All right. And they could put the SVHO engine in it. They could put the TR1 engine in it. It could do everything. And that was the plan. That was the plan. And they said if the economy didn't pull up in 2014, we were going to kill the FX first. Or excuse me, they were going to kill the FZ, of course, because the GP. And then they were going to phase out the FX, and it was only going to be the VX. And that was going to be it. And I heard, not directly through Kawasaki, but a couple of people who help with testing, that the Ultra was just going to be the one jet ski. I had not heard anything regarding Sea-Doo doing, one platform. But I knew Kawi and Yamaha most assuredly was only going to do one VX. And that's a big deal. That's a huge deal. They were going to reduce their offerings by probably 70%. And it was just going to be VX TR1 with a couple trim, VX HO, and then SVHO. And that was going to be your choices. And that is bananas. That's bananas. So that's how the OEs are going to prepare for this. Now, we know a couple things. Demand for electric is a popularity contest. Demand for electric is premature because the infrastructure doesn't exist to support it. You cannot plug in at a fuel dock right now. There's nothing like that yet. And there will be. It's happening, and it's happening for electric boats. It's happening for electric jet skis. It's happening for a lot of things. But we're not there yet. And right now, Sea-Doo is incredibly close to having an electric PWC called the GTI-E, or the E-GTI. Is it the E-GTI? I think it's the E-GTI. And right now, there's no word on battery life, how, range, just nothing. There's no info on it. And I've dug through the snowmobiles, I've dug through Can-Ams, I've dug through Can-Am media, I've dug through snowmobile media, I've dug through all these things, and no one has a word on it. Sea-Doo won't tell me a damn word on it. They won't tell me anything. But they do know for certain that the electric platform will arrive on the 13-foot and 13 and 15-foot switches. So you might have an electric switch, which is interesting. So what about Yamaha? Does Yamaha have an electric jet ski? Not that I've heard anything on. Does Cowie? Absolutely not. Under any circumstances do they have one. So that might put Sea-Doo out in front. Yamaha is going to have to respond if the market responds to an electric jet ski. Here's my concern. And this is what I'm going to kind of end this whole kit and caboodle lecture on. I know what happens when people lose their jobs. I know what happens when suddenly food becomes very expensive. I know what happens to families' budgets when that second or third car payment is no longer tolerable for the family budget. What happens? They stop buying jet skis. And I watched the market from 2008 through 2014 crawl on its belly. I watched it. Every jackwagon on Facebook who's saying, nothing's going to happen. I'm going to have my ski. I'm going to do this. I'm skate or die, dude. I'm going to do it for, I'm going to ride or die. Bullshit. Because when your wallet tightens up like your sphincter, you're going to go, I ain't dropping $70 to go fart around on the lake right now. I got to put that tank in the truck so I can go to work on Monday. That's what happens. I know a lot of guys are going to go, oh, man, no, dude. I rode through 2009. I rode through 2010. I'm like, yeah, I bet you did. And you did it on a 5-year-old ski. All right? And how often did you go out and ride? Did you ride as much as you did last year? Did you ride as much as you did this year? Nope. What's going to happen is you're going to go, I got to feed the kids. I got to make my house payment. I got to make my car payment. I got to keep my job. I don't have customers coming into my work, into my store, or calling my phone or dropping emails. Things are going to get tight. All right? You talk about a manufactured crisis. Guess what the manufactured crisis is? It's called the World Economic Forum. It's all of the world's elitists got together, and underneath an article written by Klaus Schwab says the title, in 2030, you will own nothing and you will like it. You don't believe me? Google it. Google it. In 2030, you will own nothing and you will like it. I dare you. Read it. Read it and not piss your pants, because that's what's coming. And that's what they're doing right now. They are trying to destroy demand for oil. It's intentional. It's intentional. All right? Every government is trying to do it, except for one guy that everyone's calling Hitler. And I'm not saying he's a good guy at all. I'm not, under any circumstances. The dude's a stone cold killer. But he seems to be the only one who gets that the World Economic Forum has got some bad plans. So what do I recommend? Food storage, number one. Number one, food storage. Have at least 4 months worth of food in your house. And I'm not talking in your pantry. I'm talking get a freezer in your garage or a fridge in your garage and get a sealable pantry and start stocking up on non-perishables. Number one. Even if you have to rotate it out just because things are getting expensive. Great. Do it now. All right. You like bacon? Buy all the bacon and freeze it. I'm telling you. Number one, food storage. Number two, get out of debt. Get out of debt. All right. All my cars are paid for. House is pretty close to being paid for. Okay. Because why? Because your bank is going to come knocking. Because they're getting knocked on. The bill collector's coming for your bank. And your bank's going to come and kick the dog. And you're the dog. That's what's going to happen. Thank you, Captain. I hate to be this messenger. I hate it. Get out of debt. Consumer debt is cancer. All right. I don't want to sound like Dave Ramsey, but get out of consumer debt. Cut up the credit cards. Stop it. That's number two. Number three. This part makes me sick. Protect you and your wife and your kids. Learn how to protect yourselves. I'm not going to say how. I'm not going to make this political. Learn to protect yourself and your loved ones. The greatest thing that I saw through the COVID scare was people bringing their elderly parents back into their homes. I think the worst thing that we've ever done as a society is put our elderly in care homes. That Asian cultures and Latino cultures have us beat. And Italians, a lot of Latin-based cultures. Western America, we have failed our parents. And we're paying the price for it. But do everything you can to protect your family and your loved ones. And if you have no one, you have loved ones. Doesn't have to be family. Learn how to protect yourself and your loved ones. Because there are people, you remember growing up and you used to hear the Aesop fable of the grasshopper and the ant? And the ant was storing food for the winter and the grasshopper was taking naps and playing his fiddle. And then when the snows came, the grasshopper came and banged on everyone's door asking for food because he couldn't find food. And finally the ant felt charitable and let him in, and the grasshopper basically ate him out of house and home. That's kind of the idea here. There's going to be people who have no idea what's coming. And the only way they'll know how to survive, this is worst case scenario. And I've always been of the mindset of prepare for the worst and, expect the best and prepare for the worst. Okay. There are people who are not prepared. And the only way they'll know how to survive is to take. And that's scary. That's very scary. The other thing I'm scared of is the exact reason why the Second Amendment exists. And it's not for hunting, and it's not for shooting clays. The Second Amendment exists to overthrow tyranny. We saw what tyranny looks like in the 21st century in Australia, and we saw it in Canada. And we're seeing it here in a soft way. We are witnessing domestic tyranny. That's all I can give. This is not a very jet ski heavy conversation. This is a heavy conversation. The best part about this is I pray to God I'm wrong. I pray I'm wrong. My prayer is that exactly like the State of the Union, suddenly the party in charge, looking at their poll numbers, goes, whoa, we got to change our tune. And suddenly they start regurgitating all the really fun stuff that us conservatives were cheering on. Right? Hey, we got to protect our border. We need to fund our police. We need to protect Second Amendment rights. We need to protect First Amendment free speech and religion rights. And, oh yeah, we don't need COVID restrictions anymore. Go to work and you don't have to wear a mask, and go to the movie theater and go to a concert. Really? Guy, I'm so confused. Why is that happening all of a sudden? Why are we doing this? Gee, I wonder. It's a mystery. Guys, I'm telling you. This is not, I don't think I'm going to cut any super chats out of this, or any quick topics out of this week's, because I'm not talking jet skis. And I know people didn't want me to talk about politics, and they didn't want me to talk about this. I'm talking economics. I'm talking money. Right now, the money in your wallet. I didn't even put my wallet away. The cash in your wallet is worth less today than it was 2 years ago, a year ago. This currency is fiat currency. It's not backed by gold. It's not backed by precious metals. It's not backed by anything. All right? It's a promissory note. It means nothing. It means whatever they tell us it's worth. Okay? My dad is 80 years old. That man made a joke that has lived with me my entire life. He says, when I was a kid, a bottle of Coke, it wasn't even a can, a bottle of Coke was 5 cents. All right? Regular 8-ounce can of Coke, 5 cents. I want you to go to a vending machine. I want you to tell me how much it is right now. If you can find it for $1, I'd be surprised. Can of sugar water, carbonated sugar water. Garbage, trash that rots your teeth and makes your stomach acidic. Coca-Cola. Scott, here's the thing. I pray that everything I've said for the last hour is wrong. I really do. I want to be wrong. It would be a blessing if I am wrong. All right? But I don't think I am. And the worst part about it is that we somehow, unimaginably, irresponsibly believe that we're going to have a fair shake at the end of this year. That things are going to right the ship. Okay? Now, mind you, we got 32 representatives from the opposition side who are choosing not to run for re-election. So now they're going to have freshman representatives running against conservative candidates. So that's odds in our favor. But do you think for a minute that the same machine that exists already in place is going to let that election go smoothly? I don't. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on, oh my gosh, I'm George W. Bush. I said it wrong. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I had a George W. Bush moment. I can't believe it. I had a W moment. That's really funny. I'm sorry. I am not a ray of sunshine. It was so funny. I got called out on Facebook for being really negative. Like, oh, Kevin's so negative. Oh, his magazine's so negative. Everything he does is negative. I'm like, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, am I really negative? Am I really a downer? And I was like, well, I'm not talking my political views. my political views aren't very good. I'm like, but you know, am I really? I thought I was upbeat. I thought I was positive. But this is a downer. This whole thing's a downer. All right, I'm telling you honestly. I want you guys to get off the computer when I'm done. I want you to go upstairs or go downstairs or where your family is. I want you to get down on one knee, and I want you to hug your kid. And I want you to tell them that you're going to take care of them. I want you to hold your wife's hand, and I want you to say, you're in it with me, and we're going to ride this storm. All right? They need to know that you're there. They do. They need to know that you're there. I already subscribed, Dino. I already subscribed. Guys, I hope I'm wrong. And we'll do a live session. We'll do a live session in November. And hopefully it's the Kevin was full of shit hour. I want that. I think that'll be great. Everyone can take pot shots at me. I'm happy to admit that I was wrong. But if I'm right, it's going to be tight. It's going to be tough. I think I'm done. For you guys with questions about the Yamaha thing, go to talk to your dealer. Crack your seats, let the air vent. If you find that you're actually finding actual liquid fuel on your gas tank because of this, it's an O-ring. All it is an O-ring. It's a $4 O-ring. It's a tiny little thing. And it's just not sealed right. All right. Take some cell phone pictures, crack your seat so that it can air vent. Don't start your ski. Call your dealer and say, when can I schedule to get the O-rings changed? If they say we need your ski for a month, if they say they need your ski for more than a week, tell them I'll buy the O-ring myself. If you're good with tools, it's super easy. There's a video. Dr. Depp, I think it's DEMP. I think it's Dr. Depp. Did a whole video on it, on how to swap it out. It's absurdly easy to do it. It's just a pain in the butt. If you're a big guy, it might be a little bit tough. But if you're concerned about it's just a repair. It's not necessarily, they call it a recall, but it's just a new O-ring. I'm not doing an article on it. There's really no need for it. It's a simple service thing. But it is, Dr. Demp's here. Good. Hey, thank you for emailing me. Thank you for emailing me your video. Your video was rock solid. It was perfect. Where can I get a new Watercraft sticker? Cameron, email me your address. I'll send you 2 just for shits and giggles because you made me laugh with your other comment. Email me your address. I'll mail you a couple. Hell, I'll put them in an envelope right now. Here. The only envelopes you can have in the South without them sealing are the kinds that you have to peel the sticker off because all the other ones seal. Cool. All right. Dr. Demp's video details everything about that seal. And it did come out. The alert did come out just after his video came out, and it's a pretty easy install, which is nice. But if you're not comfortable doing it, which I understand, and you don't have to be comfortable doing it, call your dealer. Say, listen, please, how quick can we do this? I want to stay on the water this summer. How quick can we change this thing out and see if they'll be cool in scheduling you some time? So it's not the end of the world. Most people are not, because most people don't overfill their ski, like, burping the air, burping the filler neck and like having this, like I do. I overfill everything. But in most cases, all you have to do is just bring it in. They take a lock seal off. They take the screws out. They change out the gasket, put a new gasket in, pop, 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 out the door. And that's it. And that's really it. So, yeah, that's it. What email address? Email address is info@watercraftjournal.com. All right. Mine had no liquid fuel leak till the fuel was all the way up to the top of the tank. Yeah, because it's going to weep out of there. If you've burped all the fuel out of it, like I'm going to spend a whole day on the water, and you're sitting there like, basically you're overloading the the ball valve, the rollover valve, and so you're just pumping water or pumping fuel into it. It's gonna weep out of there. So, all right, guys. Well, I'm done. I know it's a little early, but this was heavy, and I actually have to pack for a trip tomorrow. I'm going to Chicago to port my cylinder heads for the Charger because more power. More power. Because that's what I need is over 700 horse on pump gas. You want to talk about wasting gas at the wrong time. So anyway, guys, God bless you. Prepare food storage. I mean, if you guys want to know what I got, I have a Harbor Freight generator that I've used 3 times to power refrigerators when the power's gone out. Because I have a freezer in the fridge. I got a fridge upstairs. Got another fridge in the back in the garage. Got a 55-gallon drum of fuel that I rotate out. And I use a long Harbor Freight electric fuel pump. And I rotate out gas. Because I've seen gas fluctuate where it goes $5 a gallon and comes back down to 3 and then goes back up to 5. So that's what I recommend. I've got, for the family, I've got about a little bit less than 6 months worth of food. I've got probably about 3 months worth of toilet paper. Probably need to get some more. We have fuel. We have. I'm going to be in West Chicago. I'm not going to have any time to hang out. I really am not. I am cannonball running up tomorrow to Hughes Engines. I will be spending 2 days straight CNC porting my heads and port matching the manifold, and basically preparing the top end of. I will not be in the city. I will be actually pretty close to Peoria. West Chicago is not as gnarly, but thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. My preparations are in case of it. I mean, there's EMP blockers for cars. A buddy of mine has 2 of them, and he's selling me on one of them, and I'm thinking I might do it for the wife's car. But I can also convert my Charger to a carburetor within an hour. It's pretty easy. And I can drive a carbureted car around if I need to get anywhere. Of course, it is a hot rod. I mean, am I going to put the whole family in a 10-second Charger? I mean, I do, but not in an emergency. But I've got fuel. I've got food. I've got protection. A lot of protection. Maybe a little bit more than I should. But water. I've got 55 gallons of water that I rotate out. And then I collect rainwater. And I also live on a lake, and I have a purifier, so I can take the kids 2 blocks down to the lawn tramp with some 5-gallon buckets in a little red wagon. Fill up the little red wagon with uh, our plastic buckets. Come up and purify that water, or we just shower with it. So it's just preparation, guys. I am looking at putting solar on the house and having my own battery bank, and that's really what I can recommend. Again, I hope I'm wrong. All right, guys, it's been interesting. Sorry for being a downer on this one. I know we didn't talk a lot of jet skis, but yeah. Sorry. I feel guilty. I feel bad about even talking about this stuff. I know people come here to escape. That's the hard thing. I know people come to talk about jet skis to escape the garbage out there, but the garbage is affecting us. The world outside, the world we're trying to escape is coming in through the windows and coming in through the door. And we can have fun, and we can turn up the music and crank up the throttle and have a ton of fun. Cameron, I just put your stickers in an envelope. Send me your address. And we can divert, we can play pretend for so long. It's the idea that the independent-minded person was like, hey, man, I'll walk my side of the street, you walk yours. The problem is that guy doesn't have the same philosophy as you do. He's not live and let live. I see you as a threat to my goals, and you must be destroyed. And that's where we are. All right, guys, I'm done. I got to go pack, and then I got to try to figure out how not to be a bummer next week. Let's think of something fun for next week. How about that? What's a fun topic for next week? All right. We'll talk soon. Have a good night.